Toronto Blue Jays are back over 500 as they just picked up a win against the New York Yankees today, 3-1. The bullpen was nails, and Chris Bassett was good in starting pitching. So we'll break that down on this episode of Jays Digest, as well as the moves that were made today, the roster moves by the Toronto Blue Jays. So we'll have that and much more coming up next. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vroynis, alongside host Nick Gosse. And another win for the Toronto Blue Jays. That's 3 in a row. Pretty good. I mean, they're back on the right track here. They took 4 out of 6 against the Mariners and the Rockies. And this is setting up to be a pretty tough series. It's going to be a dogfight of 3 games against the New York Yankees. But they got the first one out of the way today. Another good outing out of Chris Bassett. He's just consistent. You know exactly what you're getting out of him. And the Blue Jays, I mean, they're back over 500 for the first time since the first game of the season. But they did make some roster moves today, and they're expected to have some help coming in the form of Danny Jansen. So, Nick, the thing I really want to break down on today's episode is just how good that catching tandem is when they're both healthy. And I'm talking about Alejandro Kirk and Danny Jansen. And Kirk is heating up at the right time here. He had a rough start to the season. He looked really good in spring training. He's coming in good shape, better than we have seen in the past. But it didn't really translate to any success to start off the year. But now he's starting to swing the bat very well. He had a streak of, I believe, 6 or 7 plate appearances where he reached base. That was ultimately snapped in his final at-bat today with a line drive to center field. But he's hitting the ball hard, he's getting on base, and he's taking his walks, something that we saw from him in his Silver Slugger season in 2022.
Yeah, very, very good game for Alejandro Kirk. And a great game yesterday. You mentioned it. Before we get into a quick reminder, hit the subscribe button. And yeah, there's a lot to discuss. And we'll start with the moves that were made. And they were making moves. And Peter, there's going to be probably another video from us tomorrow on more moves that are coming with Eric Swanson and Jordan Romano. And those will be a bit of a bigger deal just because of who they're going to have to send down, given how good Nate Pearson has been. But we'll save that for tomorrow. But obviously, Danny Jansen was reinstated, and Brian Servant, who surprisingly has options despite his age and his track record in playing in the MLB for, I believe, the Guardians, whatever team it was, he is now in AAA. So this is a pretty simple move. He obviously did not play today. We suspect he's going to start tomorrow's game when Yusei Kikuchi starts, but we're not sure about that. But Peter, obviously a very interesting move and a very good move. Obviously, he did very well in Buffalo, and he's been a guy who it'd be great to see his season debut. It is going to be at home, and it's great to see Danny Jansen back, and especially given now that Kirk is getting a little bit hot, this could rest is always helpful for Alejandro Kirk and any catcher in general, really.
Well, he's a big power bat as well. And contrary to Alejandro Kirk, he does everything at an elite level. No, I wouldn't say at an elite level, but he's good. And he doesn't have many holes in his game. Whereas Alejandro Kirk, if he hits a single, you're going to need 2 or 3 hits to get him across to home plate. So that's not a problem with Danny Jansen. It's a different look for opponents. And Kirk, we've said this multiple times, he's not effective when he has to catch 4, 5, sometimes even 6 times a week. It's just not sustainable for him because you need his bat in the lineup. He is a good hitter. He has been one of the more productive hitters at the catcher's position, but you need him to be fresh, and you need him to be out there and focus on his bat. He's very good defensively. He's great at framing. He's great at calling games and just solid behind the plate in terms of blocking and all that. But his real value comes from his bat. And when he has a quality backup in Danny Jansen, and I wouldn't even call Danny Jansen a backup. It's more of a 1A, 1B situation when they're both there. I think that helps the both of them out. It helps Danny Jansen get the proper rest that he needs so he can stay healthy because we know about his injury history. And it helps Alejandro Kirk because he stays fresh and his bat and his legs are just ready to go at all times. So we might even see both of them in the lineup at times. Don't think that's as likely as it was in the past, but still, it's a good option to have. If one of them doesn't start, you could bring Danny Jansen off the bench. You could bring Alejandro Kirk off the bench. It just gives the Blue Jays another look. And no disrespect to Brian Servant, but he just wasn't able to provide that for this team.
Yeah, no, I agree. And one other note before we move on to the game a little bit more, there's some other injury updates. Joey Votto doing some hitting work, but no immediate plan for rehab. Manoah's another AAA start, and Uriel's lined up to start on the Padres for Friday. So some other updates there which are of note going forward. I guess the biggest one there is Manoah. We'll see how he does, but and obviously we'll have a Swanson and Jordan Romano update for you all tomorrow. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned it, a good move, and I mean, let's touch on it, how big, you kind of mentioned it, how huge huge assist for Alejandro Kirk. We're already kind of talking about it, but let's get into the game today. He went 2 for 3. He got a 2-out RBI double to cash in a runner from second. Like, he's doing the things now that we were hoping he was doing at a very good time, because Danny Jansen now is going to give him some rest. They'll be able to do some. I mean, the DH is not going to happen as much because of how good Justin Turner has been. He's been the best hitter, one of the best hitters in baseball, the best on the Blue Jays. But from today's game, Peter, anything? Obviously, the offense still has a ways to go, but they should have scored more when it was bases loaded, no outs in the second or third inning there, but it's okay. We got the win because of the pitching, which was unbelievable. Obviously, the pitching was great, continues to be. Anything shine from you or stick out to you regarding the hitting besides Alejandro Kirk? I mean, Biggio continues to do well as well.
Yeah, hit that double there early in the game. The one thing that stands out to me, Nick, early in these last few games that we've seen is the stolen bases. That's not really something that we saw out of the Blue Jays last year. We know George Springer swiped 20 bags. Dalton Varsho was always a threat, but I think the lack of home runs that the Blue Jays have been hitting, they got to start stealing bases. They got to start manufacturing runs. They've been doing that. I mean, Bo Bichette stole one today. George Springer as well, who's leading the team in stolen bases. I don't know if you want that to happen because you want him to stay healthy as well. So you got to find that happy medium if you're the Blue Jays. But being aggressive on the base pass, trying to manufacture runs, and being a contact hitting team. I mean, I know Don Mattingly came out and said it, and fans were up in arms, but we haven't seen the power for a couple of years now from this Jays team, so they got to find ways to get runners across and score them, because their pitching is really good. You know what they're getting out of their starting pitching, but the power just isn't there. So you got to find ways to scratch, claw, and fight for everything on the offensive side of the ball. And they've been doing that in the past few games. They've been stealing bases, and it's an encouraging sign going forward. Hopefully, with the insertion of Danny Jansen, they can be a bit more aggressive on the base pass and see more of that, because I think it's an added wrinkle that they need to get at.
I want to point out one other thing as well is the walks and just kind of the approach that they've been playing with. I texted you about this. We kind of been discussing it anyways. Is they haven't been hitting home runs. They haven't really been getting the amount of hits at runners in scoring position that you want. But their plate approach seems a lot better than even it was last year during the bad times, medium times. They're getting on base a ton. They're getting into spots to hit. Yeah, the hitting hasn't been as good as we wanted it to be. But if they're going to keep getting on base like this, one of these days, Vladdy and Bo are going to start breaking out. And then from there, you're really in for a treat. So, I don't know. Do you have any quick thoughts on that? Again, they're getting great at-bats. They're getting everything good. Now, when it's actually time to strike, we see horrible at-bats sometimes from Vladdy, from Kiermaier, who's been the worst hitter in baseball, unfortunately. Yeah. The walks, though, very, very encouraging. You see here, there's 5, 6, 7, 8 walks. And huge shout-out to IKF, even though he didn't get a hit. For some reason, I just love the way he plays. But I'll let you take over here.
Yeah, he's definitely turning into a fan favorite here early on, and I've been very happy with the way that he's played. But yeah, plate discipline and taking your walks and just seeing the ball the way that they're seeing it right now is a sign of better things to come. Because when you're taking your walks, when you're patient, when you're not trying to do too much, apart from, let's say, Vladdy, who had that horrible 2-2 swing later in the game. I mean, he still had 2 walks today. So he is seeing the ball. Most of the team is seeing the ball. I'm no math guy, but I think that's 8 walks in today's game. It's a pretty good number, yeah. Nick. That is pretty good. That'll play. The hits weren't necessarily there today, especially with runners in scoring position. They just did not come through when they needed to. But a sign that better things are to come on the offensive side is that you are taking your walks and that you are being patient and not trying to be the hero. That's a lot of what we saw last year with this Jays team. When things weren't going well offensively, they were all trying to be the one guy to get the team out of the slump, and you're never going to get out of your rut that way. So take your walks, be patient, trust your pitching, because that's the strength of this ball club, and then go from there. But tomorrow's going to be a tough test. Again, you're going to see Yusei Kikuchi on the mound for the Jays. Hopefully Danny Jansen is ready to go and he could start that game, because I believe Kikuchi really does well with Jansen behind the plate, and he hones him in. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow's game. Going to be another dogfight, going to be another close 9 innings that the Blue Jays will have to play, but they're up for it, man, and they've won 3 in a row. They've won 5 out of their last 7 games. They're headed in the right direction. I know the offense isn't really there yet. I don't know if it'll ever be there this season, but we know that the strength of this ball club is the pitching and the defense, and those 2 things have shined through, and they're starting to implement more things like base running, stealing bases, and whatnot. So the team is what they are. I mean, they're not going to surprise us over the course of these 162 games, Nick. But I've liked what I've seen in the past few series here, and hopefully they can keep it going tomorrow with Kikuchi on the bump.
Yeah, very good job by Chris Bassett. Huge shout out to him and Jimmy Garcia. I mean, the bullpen's been great. We don't have to touch too much on that. The pitching is really
Yeah,
something that's been stayed constant. But Chris Bassett having another great start against the Yankees is something that was very welcome. And Peter, even though John Schneider said that Jordan Romano's going to be the closer when they come back, Jimmy Garcia is probably going to be the guy. I wouldn't be surprised if he takes over the eighth inning role and then Swanson starts at the seventh inning. Just how good because of how good he's throwing the
he's been
ball.
so good.
Yeah, and I'm
He's
sure
been
we'll have
so good, man.
another
Yeah.
conversation on that tomorrow when all those moves go down. But that'll wrap it up. Tomorrow again we play the Yankees again against Carlos Rodon, so we'll probably see Schneider and Ernie Clement in there tomorrow, I would assume. So that'll be an interesting one, but we'll have you covered for all that. Thank you guys for watching. If you want to check out a video from yesterday, click on your screen now. We'll see you tomorrow.